Hello guys, and welcome to a new series. This, I guess, is one of the only things I have to offer anymore since I've talked about pretty much everything else. So I want to talk about dating for a bit. I'm not going to give you guys any tips in order to get laid. I will not describe methods in order to get laid, but rather the dynamics of the interactions and what women are saying and what I might do in these situations. Before we start the explanations of how I'm a doctor and that's why I get laid, allow me to say this. Yes, things have been a bit easier since I qualified as a doctor, I'll give you that. I have no illusions about the hypergamy of women. But I will also add that I haven't always been a doctor. I haven't always revealed what I did to women. And your job is not the fundamental attribute that attracts women. Additionally, I want to state categorically here that the aim of my channel is not to get women to visit you or have sex with you, but I have received questions about this specific aspect multiple times, and it's knowledge that's just sitting in my brain that I simply act out. Within the community, we also have quite a few men, especially young men, who are looking to get laid, and this is going to give those men some clarity about their interactions with women. Alright, I hope I covered all the issues that may potentially arise from me covering this PUA-ish topic, and I can start the video. Today we will be talking about frame, so let's get into it. Frame is something that is described all the time in the PUA scene, and they talk about it, in very complicated terms. They go in great depth about it, and I think that's largely unimportant. In essence, every human interaction between men and women can be seen and is seen as taking place not in a room, but rather in one of the two's worldview. That's how I at least see things. The majority of people will instinctively know who is controlling the interaction, but if you have doubts, you can always evaluate the situation for yourself. And this is what I mean by that. The one who commands the subjects of their conversation, the one who is least likely to apologize, the one who is more likely to define the boundaries of a conversation, along with the topics, is the one who is more likely to be controlling the frame. This is an essentially very simplistic way of defining things, but in essence, instinctively people take roles as the dominant and submissive in an interaction. There is someone that commands each interaction, and when that someone is the man, the interaction is a lot more likely to get him laid or give him what he wants. This should not be confused with whoever is doing the majority of the talking, as this doesn't necessarily mean that that person is indeed controlling the frame. Realistically speaking, people who ask more questions do get more answers, and they do get access into the other person's brain, thus revealing more about the other person than themselves. Therefore, they are guiding the conversation, and in terms of a transaction, they gain more from the interaction, and they reveal less about themselves, and as such remain slightly more mysterious. Men are often given the advice to ask women questions, and one of the reasons that such advice is given is because it creates the illusion that men are actually in control of the frame. Women want a man to be in charge. Despite the feminist rhetoric, such a thing should be obvious to us. The way that a man can remain in charge of the interaction is to understand that his value is equal or higher than that of the woman's. Understanding this fundamental concept sways a man away from falling into the trap of valuing a woman's vagina way too much. You see, one of the clear problems that I have with the majority of the things that PUAs talk about is this concept that sex is something that needs to be won. And my problem is the winning part. Despite this problem with the mentality, I do think that PUAs are largely successful. But this idea almost puts them at a disadvantage. Realistically speaking, holding this belief keeps a man to understand that a woman will only grant him pussy as a reward to being good and winning her affection. Though realistically this is true, and this is a fundamental of most interactions, appreciating that sex is not rewarded to you, but it's given unwarranted because you are you, is actually a lot better. I have no disillusions about the importance of sex for men. But every interaction with a woman, though it might be just for sex, must never be about sex. That is to say that you might be interacting with a woman with the ultimate goal of a one-night stand, but if the woman does not meet your criteria, talks some shit that you don't like, then you simply walk away. A man who is not willing to walk away or prepared to walk away, or does not necessarily like the women that he sleeps with, is not a man that controls the frame. The frame is important between men and women because it speaks to something that is almost primal, the importance that you assign to your own value. A monkey with no concept of himself, with no self-reflective abilities, who flings shit to monkeys that he doesn't like and just goes about his business eating bananas and simply wanking off, has more of a chance of controlling the frame than the everyday man. That means to say that men that have a lot of self-belief, men who appreciate themselves, who love themselves, who don't look down upon themselves, though they might be fucking dipshits, and a lot of them are, will be more successful with women. Selfishness, an attribute that I keep advertising, is a recipe that makes a man successful with women, and I also believe successful in life in general. That doesn't mean that a person needs to be an asshole or not help anyone, but the priorities of a person should be first to himself and then to everyone else and everything else. Like I said, I'm not going to share any tips and tricks in this video on how to get laid and how to control the frame, but I'm going to quickly explain how I am within my interactions with females by giving examples from my life and what I mean by these concepts that I'm explaining here. This should at least help you to understand women a bit better. During a normal interaction with a female, I prefer to simply listen. The reason why I prefer to listen is because it helps me understand the person that I'm dealing with. It almost feels like I'm hosting the audition. It's something that I do most of the time. I spend a lot more time listening than I do talking, although when I do talk, it will usually be in long monologues that will not allow any room for answers or questions. Therefore, when I see a woman out for drinks, or I go out to dinner or anything like that, or even my regular interactions with female friends or male friends, my questions try to push buttons for people and I expect reactions for them. Therefore, I'm always joking and expressing my disapproval of things that I don't find acceptable, and I also give them my approval when I find things that I find quite enjoyable with what they're saying. So it gives them almost a brief idea of how it feels like to be in my worldview. This engages the morality of the other person, the person in front of me, and it also allows me to see if there is any room for independent thought in their brain. It also allows me to see deeper into their inner workings and the inner workings of that person's life. Things that may be wrong with them, for example, difficulties in life, difficult upbringing, all of these things are important as they build an image in my head as to who the other person really is. I don't, of course, try to think like this as I'm doing it. I simply do it. It's overly complex like this, and it's quite stupid to think that I'm that complicated as a person. What I do is I simply ask questions based upon the things that I find interesting about the other person. If you have seen any of the interviews that I do on the channel, you can pretty much understand how I'm with women. I know all the interviews are with men, but I think you can see how each question is trying to seek more information about the person sitting in front of me and about that person's deeper beliefs and his understanding and his philosophy of life. The frame does not simply refer to interactions, but also the ones that each person has from that interaction. The one that has more control of the frame is the person that wants least out of that interaction. Look at negotiations and think at the negotiating party that is needing something from the other party as the one that's actually losing the frame. It's the one that's actually doing the begging. And as a man, you shouldn't really be begging. So if sex with that particular person has become a need, then the frame can be potentially lost. It is understandable how in marriages, well, at least faithful marriages, the frame is often lost by the husband as the woman withholds sex and the man has to remain faithful. This situation is vastly different in relationships, especially if you're willing to walk away into something better. Your options are the ones that define who wins the frame or not. The frame, as I have described it, is important as it primarily is explained by the way that women find a partner. Hypergamy is always looking for something better. A man is normally in a strong negotiating position, a position in which sex is not all that important to him, takes the power away from that woman, and he actually controls the frame. Hypergamy finds it harder to find something better, and after all, a woman does not want to control the frame. She inherently wants a man that controls the frame for her. This ability of a man to control the frame is not something that women think about. It's rather something that is experienced. It's something instinctual. A woman might say something that she likes a man that leads, etc. And what she means by that is that she likes it when a man maintains control of the frame. And the frame is not something that stops when sex is achieved or the relationship progresses, although men would like to think so. That's why it's advisable, if you're planning to date, to simply be yourself. I know this cliché line is used all the time, but I mean this literally. Be yourself and do what you would do for yourself, and don't think about the woman. The woman may say many things containing words pertaining to her level of satisfaction and dissatisfaction, her wants and her identified needs, but what she actually finds enjoyable is her ability to follow. And she wants a man that controls the frame in order to enable her to do that. There is no trick to follow. There is nothing to do. It's just sitting back, being yourself, and not desperately needing the approval of another person. I have said it many times before, men are not born pussy worshippers, but rather acquire that skill through early disappointments and really bad advice, especially coming from females. The observations that I have listed today should provide some clarity. I will try to continue this series, and please enjoy, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask below. Thank you for listening.